Hey, I'm Damon with Modern Music Studio. Here's another 30-minute lesson for you. This one is going to involve comping and fills, kind of the tricks to rhythm comping and the sort of solos that you, or the scales that you might use to find little fills and riffs to spice up your rhythm playing. Say you got a G to C, G to D progression, right? You might get tired of just playing the G to the C, the G to the D, so we're going to look at some different things to spice that type of stuff up. So to start with, like I say, like a G to C, like say something like Brown Eyed Girl. Something like that. Well, the same progression could be made more bluesy by making those seventh chords, dominant 7 chords. So for instance, there's a G7. Here's your open G7. But here's the G7 bar chord. You got 3rd fret, 5th, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 3rd. G7, now C7. 3rd fret, 2nd, 3rd, 1st, open. D7, open, D7's here. You could also do D7 here. You wouldn't play the bottom string on that one. That comes from the C7 open chord shape. But the C7, you can play that bottom open string. D7, you want to mute that one. So instead of G to C, G to D, we could do the 7 chords. You might do a more, different tune, more of a bluesy thing with that. Okay, so if you want to try that with me, I'll count that off. So, with the 7 chords, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now the next step is if you want to get a little more jazzy. Funk chords kind of use this type of thing, the 9 chord situation. So you'll most often see that, say if we were doing our G up here, the bass note on the 10th fret, then that would be the 7-9 chord shape. That's like your funk James Brown kind of chord shape right there. So you usually see it played off of that string, the 5th string bass note. But in this case, we're going to do it on the 6th string bass note. So that's a 3rd fret, muted A string, and then we got 3rd fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret. So that's a G7-9. And then we go to the C7-9, we're going to do this shape. Same one that we did up here. So we're going to have 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got 3 different kinds of chords. We got your major chords, we got your 7 chords, dominant 7s, and then we have your dominant 7-9 chords. Now, one interesting thing you can do is like a sliding double stop off of this chord here. So if we went like... Okay, so what I did is I was sliding on the D string and the B string, using those notes that I was using in that same spot for the chord. When I got down here, I kind of just shifted to those same strings. And the one in the middle mutes real easily by the bottom of this finger. So, slow it down a little bit. So say if you could do the answers of the, as I do the rhythm. So you could kind of just pick that. I'm going to try to do the rhythm and the slides, but you could just try to get the slides in time to make that a little more simple. So 2, 3, 4. G again. C. Back to G. Go to D. Okay, so we'll pick that up a little bit. 2, 3, and just do the, if you want to make it a little easier, you know. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll do 4 of the G's this time. Then C, twice, back to G, D, forgot that one. Okay, so another thing you can do on that would be like, so if we change the feel a little bit, like on this C. C, G, D. Let's do that again. 4 G's. C, G, D. So sometimes I use these fingers and sometimes I use these fingers. Kind of mix it up a little bit. One other fancy little things. I think I got this out of Stormy Monday Blues by the Allman Brothers, their version. Was like you get to that C chord. So that's another little trick. That was like either Dwayne or Dickie doing that kind of stuff. Alright, so that's some of the things you can do. That's some of the double stop stuff, and that's the 9 chords and things. Now looking at this G9 here again. G7 sharp 9. That's like your kind of Jimi Hendrix, Foxy Lady kind of chord. So we're not going to go into that too much right now, but that's another one, you know. Here's a James Brown song called Super Bad. And then later in the song, so that's just your regular 7-9 chord. So you can hear that difference between the more minor edge of the raised 9, because that's a flat third note. So this is your more minor feel. And that's more of a minor 7 really, because it's not using that major third. But you get that minor edge, and then sort of a more 7, you know, dominant 7 is kind of like major and minor combined, you know. You look at a major chord, this is like a minor 7. See that note there? You add that minor note into this major chord, keeping that major note, and that's where you get that twang for blues, a 7 chord. That same twang kind of is still there in the 9 chord. Okay, so moving on to, let's look at a couple of examples. So here's another thing that comes out of a G chord or a G7 chord. You got these notes. Now if you're on your C chord, here'd be our D chord. Okay, so you also have a chromatic one in between there that gets used sometimes, like or you might have heard stuff like those kind of things. That little turnaround was sharp 5 to 5. know your 5 chord, 5th note of this scale, you have a 1, 4, 5 progression here. The 5 chord is like that turnaround before you get back to your beginning. So that's a sharp 5, 5 turnaround. Okay, another example of little fills to do. Well, let's look at the G major pentatonic scale real quick. So that's a way of combining positions within the major pentatonic scale. The major pentatonic scale has the following notes. The 1, 2, 3, note 4 has the 5 and the 6, it has no 7. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. So that's another way to play it, where your fingers are, it's a little more easy to move around with that type of combining positions riff. So let's look at Hound Dog. Hound Dog's actually in C. We can do the same kind of stuff. It's like, see. F. Okay, so here's our chord for the C. We were using just notes out of that major pentatonic I just described. They're just using a few notes. And they're really just simulating a 1, 3, 5, the triad. But they're just putting a little style into it. Same thing for the F. If you look at the F major pentatonic, just kind of doing the triad with a little fanciness. Okay, now if we look at, here's another song in C. This one is My Girl, Temptations, I think. Most. So you see they go through the whole pentatonic major scale for each chord on that one. But they stop here on the 2nd note and then hit it again and slide to the 3rd note. And that takes you up to the octave. Okay, they do the same thing on the F. So here goes My Girl again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so why does that help you if you're trying to comp this? This kind of thing. Well, you can always throw in a riff like that. So you got to go, you're doing a C for a while. Another thing on this, when you have a chord here like that, you have that lower note, that's your 5, 6 coming back to the 1 there. So all kinds of things you can do there. If you look at this, that puts you in your pentatonic major shape for this position. That being your C. You've got your 1 chord like this, you got kind of like Rolling Stones, like. So if you have a major chord, you always have that, that's the 4th of the chord, that's like going to the F there with a different bass note. So that'll help you change it up a little bit for this major chord. Now you get over here to this one. Now in this shape, there's another cool thing you can do, which involves the next thing we're going to talk about. Going from a minor 3rd to a major 3rd, creating a dominant 7 bluesy sounding effect. So if we look at this chord, this would be our minor pentatonic scale. So this, that's the root, the F. That's a minor 3rd, When you do that kind of maneuver, you go from minor third to major third. And you create a bluesy effect because you have, like I said, the dominant 7 is part major, part minor. So when you combine minor with major, you just kind of milk that chord for all of its sort of emotional value, you know, in a way. There's a lot of it there. There's other places to get that kind of stuff too out of the chord. But one thing you'll see was like, so you'll see a little... So a lot of times what happens there, it could either be a 2-string thing, so it's like you're doing in this case I'm doing the 2nd and 3rd strings, 1st fret, and I'm hammering to the 3rd string, 2nd fret. You might use the 2 3rd frets, 2nd and 3rd strings still. I'm keeping it on these 2 strings. Now those are the notes, if you were to combine positions in the minor pentatonic, you'd get up into that thing. So that's just a handy thing to use with these other couple of double stop sort of fill things. Back at the Chicken Shack, Jimmy Smith, I believe, has a riff very much like that. So that's some of the things you can do. Another thing with this here, that's part of the 7 chord too. So you got all those kinds of things you can do. What else we got here? So let's look at the major pentatonic one more time. And here's each octave. And then here's the G again, starting again. And here's the G starting again. Alright, now let's talk about the minor pentatonic one more time. Here's the G minor pentatonic. And that's your darker sounding minor kind of riffs. Now if you want to add the bluesy note into it, the flat 5th, so let's look at this G chord here. We'll do a little comping on that. So one of the things you can do, okay, so I did a little double stop thing there where I use that flat 5th note within my, kind of mixing up the notes of the scale a little bit to give it a little, that creates that same effect. But you have little, you know, different things. There's different things all over the place. So I'm going to just do a little bit of an improv on this G chord and see what different kind of things I can come up with, mixing all of those types of things together. So here we go. Okay, so I got a little ahead of myself there because we need to talk about the arpeggio before we bring that thing in. So, let's go through the G7 arpeggio right here. I think that'd be a good time for that. So, that's the 1, 3, here's your major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 3, 5, flat 7. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 1, 3. Now, if you remember that thing about minor to major thirds, right? It's kind of milking out that 3 note, giving it a bluesy edge to it. So, once again, G7 arpeggio. again. I'll count you in. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so here goes the C7 arpeggio. One, 3, 5, flat 7. Back to the C here. 1, 3, 5, flat 7. We can try that together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and. All right, one more time. 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and. All right, same thing for D. 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so now when you look at a 7 chord, you can start to see this visual of all these notes. And sometimes you might even come up with something like just on the spot, just by seeing some of the notes of that. Here would be an example of sort of a repeating thing. So here's G7. Now if you remember the C7 arpeggio, so we could go G7 to C7. The D7 is just 2 up from C. So G, C, G, D. So let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. G, D, C, G, D. Okay, now let's see. Let's look at combining pentatonic minor positions. Let's do it in E minor. So I'm going to show you the 5 positions so you have it all. It'll be on tabs and stuff. And we'll talk about the 2 main ways of combining positions within E minor pentatonic is going to be this example. So here's your first position. Here's your second position. Here's your third position. Fourth position. Fifth position. Okay, so now let's look at the 2. Let me go ahead and play those again, and if anybody's wanting to try to play along in time with me on that. So let's go 3 and 4 and. Back. Let's do second position. 3 and 4 and. Back. Third position. 3 and 4 and. And this is good for down up picking practice as well. Fourth position, 3 and 4 and. And fifth position, 3 and 4 and. Okay, minor pentatonic scale is one you can really get away with using over a lot of different things. Major chord, minor chord, 7 chord. Stuff like that. So good to know. Now we're going to look at the 2 most common ways of combining positions. So on that 3rd string on the 2nd fret, when you get to that, you're going to move up into a new position. See how that gives you access to higher notes? Well, if you didn't need higher notes like that, you could have just stayed in that one position and done your stuff there that you needed to do. But if you wanted to move above the notes of that position, that's a good way to get you in the right direction. Okay, gets you all the way up in there. Now the other one starts here in the third position. Okay. So right here on the D string, 7th fret, you move up to the 9th. Here you're going to shift to the first finger so you can pull this riff off better. Okay, so that's a little on the E minor pentatonic and the different positions. Those same positions make the major pentatonic scales too. So if you want a G major pentatonic, you start on the 2nd position of E minor pentatonic. That's the 1st position of major pentatonic. So if you're saying to yourself, wow, the G major pentatonic notes sure look exactly like the E minor pentatonic notes. That's because those are relative. That's relative minor. So all the notes of an E minor scale are the notes of a G major scale. Same thing with pentatonics. Okay, so once you know the positions for the 5 minor pentatonics, you also know the positions for the 5 major pentatonics. Okay, let's go a little bit further on this. So back to the 7 chord. Let's put it here for D. So this is Sex Machine. This is a 13 chord. So you got your 7 chord here. You add this note on top, that pinky on the 7th fret. That's a 13 chord. That's another extension of a 7 chord. So it's like 7, 9, 13 is what you usually see. Used most in funk and blues and R&B and stuff. So just a little quick way to show you how that gets used sometimes. Up here on the G, later in Sex Machine, so it's just something to give a different sound to the top of the chord. Now if you wanted to find that 13 chord off of this 7 shape, it looks like that. So sometimes that's a nice jazzy one to mix up a 7 thing. Outside, So anyway, think that has been about it. Once again, we had 7 chords, 9 chords. We had a raised 9 chord. We talked about Hound Dog. We talked about My Girl. That kind of stuff. We talked about these double stops based around the bar chord shapes. You see those notes? Okay. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Come and see us at Modern Music Studio. This has been Damon Wood. Chords and fills, comping and fills, tricks for R&B, funk and soul and rock and stuff like that. So take care. See you next time.